This is episode 2 of the van build. In this episode, we cover quite a bit, installing 2 windows, a roof rack, and the vinyl flooring. Here, I'm prepping for the first window installation. It's on the sliding door. This was another very stressful part of the build. Once you start cutting this window, there's no going back. And unlike the roof, this window is extremely visible, so no ugly patches. I used an angle grinder to cut off the ribs. Having the angle grinder was a huge advantage as it took hardly any effort to remove them. The window I purchased from the Nomadic Supply Company, specifically for the Ford Transit sliding door. I chose it because it had a built-in sliding window on the interior so I could open it. And it also has a bug screen, so I could get a cross breeze without having bugs getting in. I've really enjoyed it. Once I had the ribs cut out, I drilled holes in the corners around the perimeter of the interior of the van. This allowed me to see the shape I needed to cut from the outside with the jigsaw. The more holes you drill, the better the outline will be on the exterior for you to mark. Once I had the lines marked, I used painter's tape around the perimeter so I didn't scratch or chip the paint with the jigsaw while cutting. The actual cutting really wasn't that bad, and it came out very nicely. I just needed to file down any sharp edges and then clean up to ensure there were no metal shards in the van. Once that was complete, I went around and cleaned with high alcohol solvent to ensure there were no oils left on the perimeter of the van where the window would sit. The window came with its own special primerless window adhesive. It was heavy-duty stuff, very thick. I will say in retrospect, I wish I'd purchased an electric caulk gun. Trying to squeeze that adhesive out was a painful endeavor and my hands ached for days. The next thing I worked on was installing the roof rack. The instructions recommended it be a 2-person job, but after looking them over, I figured out a way I could do it myself and felt very confident. The roof rack is from Unaka, and it was also built specifically for the Ford Transit high roof extended. A big portion of installing the roof rack was assembling all the little parts, all the nuts and bolts, and getting those organized before the actual installation. This will save you a ton of trips up and down the ladder once you begin installing. Also, Unaka has amazing videos on their website that show you how to install. One thing about the Ford Transit is that it doesn't come with exposed roof rack bolts, so for each bolt you have to peel off a small vinyl sticker with a heat gun to expose the roof rack attachments. What I discovered crawling on the roof of the van was that my knees were making small dents in the roof. So as you see here, I brought up some pieces of high density insulation to crawl around on so I wasn't denting the roof. The installation was pretty straightforward. I started on the passenger side with a long rail, put it in place, and secured one bolt to ensure it wouldn't go anywhere. Then I secured the rest of the bolts and moved on to the other side before attaching the front wind fairing. Installing the front wind fairing was actually one of the more stressful parts because if you don't get it secured and you drop it, it would slide down your windshield, either cracking the glass or denting the hood, neither of which I wanted to deal with. Thankfully, I was able to get it attached without issue. After installing the first window and then the roof rack, I was feeling very confident about installing the smaller rear window. Not only was it smaller and lighter, but I had the experience of the other window behind me. Unfortunately, things didn't go smoothly because of its clamshell design. I knew I needed to build spacers between the two clamshells to make up the space that a normal RV would have, since this window was built for an RV. So I set to making one and getting it ready. Once I had the outside clamshell part of the window installed, I went inside to attach the interior clamshell with the spacer, and that's when things became quite difficult. I struggled to get the clamshell to seat properly with each other, and I could tell the window just wasn't fitting the way it should. So I slowed down and took my time to assess the situation. I made some adjustments to the spacer and was able to move forward. The whole process was quite the struggle and took much longer than anticipated. I'm very happy with how that window turned out, and it has remained leak-free to this day, unlike the sliding door window, which after the first big rain showed signs of a little moisture dripping down from the top. But it was an easy fix, as I was able to add more sealant to the top of that window with no issues. Next, I tackled more furring strips. I focused on the front area of the van behind the cabin. My van build will include a headache wall that goes between the living space and the cabin, so I knew I had to bolster these furring strips as much as possible up there. This was a good example of not really knowing exactly how I was going to accomplish something, but just needing to move forward. Here I am cutting down some more furring strips. I will say, the momentum at the beginning of a van build is intoxicating. There are so many things to do, and they all make such a big difference as you watch your van turn from an empty shell into something. It's easy to feel motivated, to find tasks to work on, and dream about the future. This was a very exciting part of the van build. Here I am cleaning up to lay down my vinyl floors. I chose a woodgrain vinyl flooring that was large enough to put down in one solid sheet. I did this so that in the event of any spills, they would hopefully just run off the edge and out of the van. It was a lot of fun rolling out the 12-foot wide sheet in the yard to get it cut, but also very stressful since I didn't want to make any mistakes. To make it more manageable, I cut off an edge I knew I wouldn't need in order to reduce the width and fit in the van. Installing it was similar to installing flooring in a house. I used the same type of adhesive you would for any residential install. Once I had the sheet laid out, I put some weights on it to ensure it didn't slide around while I trimmed off the excess. Then I lifted up one edge and began applying flooring adhesive. It was really straightforward and very satisfying. Then was on to the other side, equally as satisfying. One thing I wish I had done slightly differently was figure out how to ensure the adhesive would stick over the zip system tape I had installed over the seams in the subfloor. It It's not a huge deal, but I noticed the little bubbling once the floor adhesive had cured around the tape area, especially where the T-joint meets there. But the excitement you get from installing your first design element in the van is wonderful. That's it for episode 2. I hope you enjoyed it and found this helpful. Thank you.